So good afternoon, everybody. I hope I keep you guys awake after lunch and all that stuff. So I don't have any lead-in slides, but I do want to talk a little bit about some concepts that computing services has been doing over the past several years that we're going to continue with these two upcoming tactical contracts that I'm going to talk about. So the idea of capacity services, I've mentioned this many times before in the conference, where we look from our perspective to acquire capacity as a utility in the data centers. And there's for a reason. There's a lot of reasons behind that. The value being that there's agility associated with these utility concepts where we can buy or acquire capacity quickly and go down in capacity as we don't need it. So obviously, for the last several years, we've done a lot of our contracts. We're in the process of, from the perspective of our hardware, our storage, as well as some of the capabilities that we have in the data centers right now. So key to this is we're going to continue to push forward with that concept. That concept seems to be, we've been very successful in it. We've seen the ability to reduce our rates by virtue of the fact that we're buying capacity as we need it. We're not carrying inventory on our books, which is important as a total working capital fund organization. We have to continue to look at that. So I have two initiatives that I want to talk about from a tactical perspective. But I'd like to say before that, we have a couple things that I just want to make sure you're aware of. That doesn't mean that we have several contracts that will be going out through the year from a tech services perspective. As workload continues to grow in the data centers, we will continue to augment our existing resources, both government and the existing contracts, with additional contracts. Things like as enterprise email, as we move forward with enterprise SharePoint, we're going to continue to look at getting additional resources to support that. And that's an ongoing thing that we'll do all through the year. But these are basically tactical initiatives that we are going to continue to pursue. The second piece of this is that as you all know, from our perspective, an RFP was released on 2 July. That was our capacity services contract for processor, and we call it the SPE contract. That went on the street on 2 July. We've got questions back. We're answering the questions, but I want to make sure that folks have had situational awareness of that. That is our capacity services contract for all the hardware and the inventory from a processing perspective. So with that, I'm going to turn to the first slide. And we're going to talk about gig content delivery. GCDS is one of our big wins, or a successful story for the Department of Defense, in that we have executed this contract that helps us push content delivery to the edge as close to the warfighter as we can. This has been a very successful endeavor since we started several years ago. We have content delivery capability both on the SIPRNet and the NIPRNet. It is a continually growing initiative, especially since we've recently changed the recovery models associated with it, where more and more applications can be augmented onto the GCDS architecture. This contract, like I said, it uses a capacity services construct. So we're going to buy this as a utility, and I'm being attacked by something. And we're going to continue to use this. So this contract, when we first initiated it, we actually used it under the existing or the old SPE contract as a CLIN associated with that. We are separating that as we move forward with the new SPE contract that I mentioned earlier. And this will be a separate open competition contract. It's going to be full and open competition. We anticipate it being awarded in the fourth quarter of next year. Reason why we're doing it now is simply because we want to make sure that we have a transition plan, an implementation plan associated with this as we move forward with the new SPE contract, as we migrate off the GCDS off that endeavor. So this is an ongoing effort. We are in the process of working the acquisition strategy and acquisition plans, and we'll continue to move forward on this. The next one is another capacity services contract, and this is the follow-on to our storage contract, ESS. This is ESS II. It's our ability to obtain dynamic scalable storage in our inventory to support all our customers. It is both. It's going to be storage available both CONUS and OCONUS wide, and again, we'll use that utility-based model. So from a joint capacity relationship, there's a lot of advantages to doing that. The provider is going to acquire, install, deinstall, and maintain all our environment. We will sustain or maintain operational control of the infrastructure, but the provider will essentially be providing that service where he'll provide whatever storage is required at the time that we need it. This is, again, capacity services, like I mentioned, where we will not own any of the assets on the floor. This is going to be a joint relationship where we share in capacity management of those storage complexes and work together to address scalability and as well as technology currency in this infrastructure as we move forward throughout the years. This will be a 8-year contract, 5 years with 3 option years, similar to the ESS I. ESS I is in its 5th year right now, and the reason why we're going forward with this is that we want to make sure that we have a seamless transition with no stop in either of the contracts as we move forward, so we don't impact any operations with our customers. Again, this will be, we anticipate 3rd quarter to 4th quarter. I anticipate basically on where we are, and from an acquisition perspective, we're probably moving closer to the beginning of 4th quarter. Our current contract is, again, with Vion Corporation. And this will be, again, another full and open competition utilizing this O&M contract. So both of those are our large tactical endeavors right now, as well as the current SPE contract that's that's in the RFP process right now. So those are the 3 large initiatives that we have currently in computing services. And thank you for your time, and I look forward to some questions. Mac.
Mr. Rivera, Mac McDonald, Cisco Systems. As we heard from Mr. Moritz, Mr. Chambers yesterday, you know, in the vendor space, processing infrastructure, storage, software are going through a convergence as a transition. In your current construct of managed services in, with separate contracts for storage, for processing, for infrastructure, what's the mechanism you're going to put in place to take advantage of those transitions we're seeing in industry to ensure that you give your customers, the best price, the most efficient service?
It's a good question. I think one of the things that we're looking at, and that's the challenge that we have, is how do you start blending these technologies together so you get the best opportunity. One of the things that we're going to try to make sure that each of these contracts talks about is the technology currency, that as you start blending the processing and storage in some level of the complex, and I know some of your vendors have already started to look at that, we're looking for that kind of initiative, innovative initiative identified as an opportunity in these contracts. So if you're going to have for example, storage solution set that includes some processing behind it or in front of it to support that requirement, I'm looking for that innovation. I don't want to be stifled by the actual term ESS and just being storage complex. I'm looking for that innovation within this contract also, similar to SPE. So I know that it's written specifically by technology or platform, but I'm going to look for that blending to exist as we move forward. Okay. So that's a good point. From an ITSM perspective, I see this just simply as part of our whole methodology in terms of bringing the whole construct of capacity and configuration management holistically across this whole environment. That will be considered as we think about, so when you think about these contracts and your initiative to provide the capability, that has to be embedded into this. And how do you manage these constructs as well as not within that platform, but across the platform. So we're going to look for that kind of innovation. As you know, from an ITSM perspective, we've adopted that model not only from an incident and operations perspective, but from a planning and sustainment perspective, a service transition perspective. So all that is incorporated in our operational model. So that will be looked at as we go forward with these contracts. I have a question over here.
Hi, my name is CJ Staten from Tritus Technologies, and one of the questions or one of the themes we heard this morning was continual competition, continual driving. And the question I have is, if you take such a large contracts that you've outlined and make them single award for a period, aren't you in effect monopolizing the ability to do competition over the course of the life of the contract?
No, because you'll have multiple platform awards within it. So you won't have just one vendor, one OEM vendor associated with this. Like our current ESS I contract, we have multiple vendors that are opportunities within that contract. So I don't see that as limiting ourselves to one specific OEM in these solution sets. Same with SPE1, we had 5 vendors as awardees. So I'll see that, I see it differently.
So it says single award on your slide. Does that mean?
Single award for the award provider, but multiple solutions within it.
Okay.
You can have multiple platforms associated with that. As an example, ESS I has 2 platforms, NetApps and HDS.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.